Have you ever noticed the white rings often found on the buffers of older German locomotives? Whether you look at preserved machines or historic photographs, these smart-looking buffer decorations are almost everywhere. But they must have another use, other than just looking good, right? Well, they don't, at least not anymore. What might look decorative nowadays originated in dire times. These rings are indeed a child of war. In fear of air raids, one of Germany's many blackout measures during World War II was the mounting of caps over the signal lights of all running trains. These caps had only a fairly small round cutout filled with tightly packed horizontal bars, making the light shining from the lamps pretty much invisible from the air, but also reducing their ground visibility quite heavily. To combat the lack of visibility and all the dangers related to it, in 1940 it was ordered that the buffers of locomotives should from now on be painted with white rings, 50 mm wide, to create a strong contrast against the black base paint. The same would later also apply to the wall locomotives. Some even received white outlines for their buffer beams, as well as markings on the steps and running board. Telling from photographs, however, it seems that only some locomotives actually received these visibility markings. Most factory photographs of the wall locomotives, in fact, show them without any of them. And even when markings were painted on, there was no uniformity there either, with every factory having their own ideas of what was necessary and what was not. Some of the buffer rings, for example, were about twice as wide as the demanded 50 mm. When the German Wehrmacht surrendered in May 1945, various blackout measures, including the white buffer rings, became obsolete. Nonetheless, it wasn't until 1963 the Deutsche Bundesbahn, the Federal Railway of West Germany, officially ended their use. At least that's what the head office thought. In reality, however, many depots continued to paint on these small adornments, with them still being commonly seen in the 1970s. And they were not only limited to steam locomotives either. Also electric and diesel locomotives could be seen sporting them, including post-war built locomotives like the E10 or the V200, where they never served any purpose at all. Furthermore, large and prestigious locomotives seemingly had a greater chance of getting them, underlining their purely decorative function. As for shunters, who comparatively rarely got them, the additional visibility would actually be useful. But these buffer rings were not the only matter. The head office fought a never-ending and unwinnable fight against their depots and employees, as individual modifications on rolling stock, whether they were purely cosmetical or served a certain function, were commonplace. And there is even the story going round that railway men snuck into the train yards at night just to paint on these rings. However, seeing how commonplace the white buffer rings were, I'm not too sure whether this is actually true or not. By the time West Germany's end of steam arrived in 1977, and the first heritage railways had been established, the white buffer rings were already an icon, and is such a popular choice for heritage machines, including those preserved by the Bundesbahn itself. Nowadays, I feel there's a healthy balance between preserved machines with and without these rings, but you still don't have to look very far until you find some. Thank you for joining me on this quick look at a small but special detail. I hope you enjoyed it. And just as special are my channel members Dave Heise, Flipschwip, Kay Frankly and Lucas Ilskens. Thank you for your tremendous support. See you again in my next video here at Steel Bridge Models.